silent store again? I'm not interested. I only shopped there once before because I was shopping for a friend, and they didn't like the silence machine very much. They couldn't even tell if it worked or not. Good day, sir.
Hello?
Hey, Jake, what's up?
Doing work type stuff. What do you need?
I keep getting these weird phone calls. They have this intense crackling sound in them.
I got this. I'll use the hacking skills I've always had for some reason.
Well?
Trev, the call is coming from inside your house!
Gasp!
Which is also on fire!
Double gasp! You wanna come pick me up?
Yeah, sure.
Alright, cool.
Is anyone... Holy shit! Decapitated body lying on the ground next to his own severed head. A head which at this time has no name. I know his name.
Holy crap, Trev. I think I know what started that fire. Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I am thinking what you're thinking, but no. The Thundercade machine did not turn sentient and try to kill us. The video vizier seemed pretty serious the last time when we signed the treaty after we got sucked into the video game for the third time.
I suppose. It didn't help that I wooed his daughter into leaving the cabinet. God, she was bad at sex stuff.
Well, she's made of squares, man. I mean, there's not a curve to be found on the girl. Where is she these days?
I don't know, I think she moved to Portland. Hey, didn't Agent Joel say something about Evil Josh and our show being the epicenter of his murders and whatnot? I wonder if he got that bastard.
Haven't you been watching recently?
No. Did something happen on the show? I don't watch it.
Yeah, me neither. Maybe we should take a look.
Good. Make sure they don't make contact with the others.
I can light a fire underneath them.
Oh, I got it.
Well, there's a clip in the Highlander 2 video where Evil Josh gets killed and then turned into a Highlander by that dude in the mask. See?
I first died when some dick killed me while at a Ren fair.
But those evil jerkbutts have been lying to us from the start. Maybe he was lying when he said that thing.
But he told that story in a voiceover. You can't lie in a voiceover.
Oh yeah, the rules, which that is one of. Well, if he did get killed, it would have happened in the opposite dimension.
Well, how the hell are we gonna get there? It's not like we can walk down to the store and take the magical door to the opposite dimension.
Stop by Superior Gameworks. We've got board games, card games, Magic the Gathering, a dimensional door to drop you into the opposite dimension.
A magical door into the opposite dimension?
You heard what I said.
Hey, we need to use the opposite dimension door. We need it right now. This is super important.
Well, it's $49.99 an hour, but that guy over there just bought the next 3 hours.
Hey, dude, you gotta help us out. We gotta find this masked
Hey.
man.
Crap. What are we gonna do for the next few hours?
May I suggest a board game? Perhaps this one. It's called The Resistance. Perfect for 5 to 10 players.
Well, I suppose we got time to burn.
Yeah, I just hope it's not so notable that we have to go and do a review about it afterwards. Because, I mean, that would really... Welcome to Jake and Trev Review Everything. I'm Trev.
And I'm Jake.
And today we are going to be taking a look at a super fun game. So super fun we had to come right back here and talk about it.
It's awesome!
It's called The Resistance, and we'll give you our overall impressions. I love this game. It's simple. It's really easy to set up. It's really easy to play. I think pretty much all age levels. It's pretty simple. You can play it a bunch over and over again, so the game time is very short. It's about 20 minutes, give or take, depending.
As for me, I also really enjoyed the Resistance. It's a very strategic game. The ways that strategies work out between them change a little bit in every round that you play. Add players, subtract players. I mean, your strategies are going to change. So there's a lot of variety there, even though it's the same game. It's kind of its strength. It's simple enough to kind of last, but complicated enough to give a lot of variety.
My move. Rook to knight 6. Checkmate.
I recommend it.
I would not, surprisingly. No, I would also recommend the game. It's a definite pickup if you and your buddies like to play games around the table. You shouldn't miss on this one. It's a lot of fun to accuse your friends of being the spy, trying to defend your own honor.
This man's a spy! Exactly the sort of thing a spy would say.
It's a good game. It's a good game, and you should go out and get it right now. What are you doing, you dummy?
You're dumb.
So we're going to talk about the elements of the game going forward.
First off, we're going to go ahead and throw up the Well, no, we're not, because...
Yeah, there's not really anything to spoil.
That's the thing. There's not really an established storyline other than the setup.
Spoiler alert, it's fun. The basic game itself, again, it's very simple. You don't have a whole lot of moving pieces. None of them move independent of themselves. This is not a wind-up board game. You have a basic set of pieces. Mm-hmm. You have your identity.
Good guys, aka resistance members, are all going to be dealt a blue card. Bad guys, aka the spies, they're going to get dealt a red card. This right here is the leader chip.
You have your vote chits.
Everybody is going to vote with these paddles right here. There's an approve paddle and a reject paddle.
And then you have the team chits, and then a board that marks the score of the game, and that's really it. It's really simple right out of the box. There's not a whole lot of explaining. Even the turns themselves are just somebody becomes the team leader. They have to pick their team. Everybody votes on that team, and whether once the vote succeeds, then the team goes out, and then it's determined whether they succeed or fail.
It is a indie game. It's not released through any of the major game publishers. It was,
big box games don't get to tell us what to do.
That's right. We choose our own way.
Sorry.
A good way to describe this game to you without, bludgeoning you over the head and forcing you to actually play it, is to kind of relate it to some other media that gives some similar feelings. And one of the things that came to mind right away would be John Carpenter's The Thing.
You guys gonna listen to Gary? He can be one of those things!
You're a spy.
If you have seen it, then you know what I'm talking about. You have this intense level of paranoia. You can't trust anyone. You're the only person that you can trust.
I know I'm human.
There are accusations flying all around. People will latch on to just the smallest thing to try to discredit you and say, well, McCready was, had the shredded long johns in the trash, and so he's probably a thing. And then it comes through completely in this game. People are analyzing little moves that you make, the way that your votes turn, so on and so forth.
Yeah. At one point in the game, people just start yelling "spy" at everybody. You're a spy.
You're smiling a little too much for it being 2-1. You spy.
That's something a spy would say. This man's a spy! Exactly the sort of thing a spy would say.
My opinion is he's a spy.
You're a spy.
Spy.
I don't even know what's going on anymore.
There's a lot of detective work to be done here.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In that aspect, I'd say that reminds me of Lie to Me.
The truth is written on all our faces.
You're just looking for the tiniest micro expressions on people's faces. Mm-hmm. Depending on how many players you have in the game, there are different cards for the mission. So if you have, 10 players, then it requires more people to go out on missions, so they have different cards set up for each round. And each card has different art, and all of the art's like Space City and Dystopian Future City, whatever, and then...
Industrial Dreg Zone, and, Empire Naval Yard, and, it's looking pretty tough.
And then they have, the 10th one, for 10 players, has that Aztec Pyramid, which we talked about in the Highlander 2 video. The darkness in the movie is very similar to Blade Runner. The corporation that runs the shield is a giant Aztec pyramid. What was the corporation that made the replicants in Blade Runner? It was a giant Aztec pyramid. It's a social game. You really have to have a lot of people around. You technically have to have at least 5 people. It really becomes very contentious at some point. You are yelling spy at each other and trying to root out the spy if you're resistance, or trying to prove that you're not a spy if you are a spy. You're playing this game, and it really becomes, at some points, even when we were playing it, it becomes like a shouting match almost. Mm-hmm. And there are other games that have that, like Risk or Monopoly.
Or Illuminati.
Illuminati, if you're into board games.
It's a fight in a box. The shortness of the game is definitely a strength. Because it is short, nobody is really going to get hard feelings over the course of it. If you are a resistance member and get branded as a spy and you can't convince anybody, or if you are a spy and you're correctly pointed out and you can't convince anybody otherwise, your frustration and shame is only going to last about 20 minutes or 30 minutes tops. Before then, you're going to have another try. Other contentious games, like the aforementioned, they're going to drag on for 5-6 hours, and by the end of it, you've got so much pent-up aggression that you have to be real good friends.
Table flip! You have to be careful when you're playing back-to-back games, which you will want to. Mm-hmm. If you have a bunch of people together and you're playing this, you're going to want to play it over and over and over again until less than 5 people want to play.
You guys want to try this again?
Yes.
Alright.
When you're playing it back-to-back like that, some of your notions about people may slide over to the next game. I mean, your brain's not thinking, oh, it's a new game. So if somebody was a spy last time, or somebody was being weird last time, you might have preconceived notions that they're going to be a spy this time. You might have prejudices towards different people in your gaming group.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful of that.
The odds of him being a spy are 1 out of 3.
Yeah, and the 3 games that we played earlier, I was a Resistance member all 3 times.
And
by the 3rd game, I felt pretty confident that people would be able to trust me as a Resistance member because it had been reinforced on them twice. I'm a loyal member of the Resistance, and I always have been. Not only are you actively competing with other players, but if you're a spy, you're turning other people against other people. You don't just have to defend yourself, you need to probably start thinking about how you're going to deflect blame.
I trust neither of you.
Greg is also
that side of the table's dead to me.
It's a labyrinthine, Byzantine, maze of deception and intrigue and planting false flags and laying blame on your friends. So, pick the people you're going to play this with well. If you are playing it with a particularly unobservant person, it may not be very fun for them.
Donnie, you're out of your element.
I have to disagree with you, Trev. I think that you can play this with pretty much anyone because, and Brian brought this up when we were playing, but the fact is that you can be Sherlock Holmes at this game. Mm-hmm. You can be, Dr. House of board games, and you can figure out who the spies are from the first round. You can be the best deductive reasoner ever.
There you go, see, you were right.
I was right. Right about what?
The police don't consult amateurs.
If you are unable to tell the other players in some way, or convince them who the spies are, you're screwed. This really is a game for all levels to play at once, because the playing field is level. On one hand, you are kind of playing yourself in this game. You have to be able to, as a spy, hide the fact that you're a spy and divert. suspicion onto other people. But if you're a Resistance member, oftentimes a lot of people that have played this have said to me and Trev that, you know, it's difficult being the Resistance because not only do you have to figure out who the spy is, but you have to tell all the other Resistance members who the spy is as well, without them being like, well, that's something a spy would say.
Let me try to clarify what I was saying.
You had your chance.
It's not that people who aren't observant can't play the game. Somebody who can't pick up on things, it can be a problem for them or for other players. And people who don't have a mind for strategy, like people who play in a very chaotic fashion.
Some men aren't looking for anything logical.
Can kind of impede the game, but on the other hand, then that's just a different sort of struggle. It's presenting potentially false data to other players and so forth. So it definitely adds a different layer. So in that way, yes, I suppose anybody really can play this game, but you know, it also can lead to some frustrations, as when you're shouting like, "Why did you vote that way?" And you get to the end and you find out that somebody who you thought was certainly a spy based on how they were voting was in fact a Resistance, and you're just pulling your hair out.
I start thinking, you know, and it makes me so angry.
One thing about this game is that there's not a lot of setup. We've mentioned that probably 2 or 3 times by now. It doesn't do a lot to try to immerse you itself in the setting of the game. There's art to look at that'll kind of give you an idea what you should be imagining in your head, both on like the playmat and on your identity cards and so forth. Like, there's a guy that kind of looks like Spider Jerusalem in there, you know, there's like the art's actually pretty good. I kind of like how it, the sort of style that it evokes. But there's not a lot of setup, even in the instruction manual. I believe it only has like a paragraph. And this is the situation. And then it's all up to you. For me personally, as you're going along, you have to go through these missions. It would have been nice to kind of have a little bit more of an idea of what those missions are. You're sending guys out with guns, obviously, so it's gonna entail some gunplay. But you know, are you taking over a train depot? Are you doing a raid on a fuel bunker? What are you doing? But on the other hand, that can be a nice thing if you have an imagination.
The art is immersive in itself. It gives you an idea of how the game is on its surface, and like we said earlier, we are immersing ourselves in the game while we're playing it, so it gives you a basis. I do like the art. I like the Resistance symbol is one of the classic, like, fists, kind of Black Panther-ish.
Yeah, another, what was it, Red Faction kind of came to mind. There was no mining pick in there, but kind of the same thing. If you are a role player, you play D&D, GURPS, werewolf, whatever.
LARPer.
If you're a LARPer, no. Yeah, actually, that would kind of help.
Kill the king. I will. Kill the king. I will.
One of the big downfalls of this game is that it is 5 to 10 players. Most games that you get people together for, usually from 2 to 4 players is the minimum. At Superior Gameworks, boop, there are a lot of Magic players that will, while they're waiting for their round in a tournament or waiting to get a bigger game set up, they'll play that game to satiate their gaming hunger before playing. So that's also another good thing. But it is tough to get 5 to 10 people together for this game. It is a short game, so you can maybe include it in your gaming night. If you have 5 or more people, then you can say, we'll play this, and then Catan, and then other games, But you wouldn't, I don't think that, we have, but I don't think you would specifically get 5 to 10 people together just to play the Resistance.
Right. The other thing about the Resistance is that 6 players isn't very different from 5, and 8 players isn't very different from 7. So if you want a real different sort of game experience, as you go up, you have to find basically 2 more players every time.
Right, the ratio of spies to Resistance changes.
Yep, at 5 or 6 players, 2 members of the team are spies. At 7 and 8, 3, and at 9 and 10, 4.
Right.
So, In my opinion, the sweet spot is 7. If you can get 7 people together, you got a good mix, lots of personalities, lots of decisions to be made, alliances to be worked out. You're in for a good time.
And having 7 players segues into our next point, which is that the expansion cards. This game comes in 2 flavors. You have your basic game, which is just playing the rounds, being the spies, being the resistance, doing all that. If you want to spice up the game a little bit, they give you a deck of cards that you can use as mission cards.
Whoever the leader is at the beginning of their turn is going to draw a plot card from this deck.
Oh man.
They're going to read it out loud, and then they're going to give it to a player of their choice. They may not keep it.
And, you got to be careful as a team leader at this point, because giving away these powers to other players can be used as an indictment against you later on if the person you gave it to ends up being a spy.
Or if you are a spy, you might give away the fact that another person is a spy by giving them a card. Just the act of giving the card out itself is a clue.
There are no innocent actions or non-actions in the Resistance. Everything is suspect.
This is pure nonsense. Doesn't prove a thing.
I thought you'd feel that way, Gary. You were the only one that could have got to that blood. We'll do you last.
The deck is split into how many cards you should have in the deck for how many people are playing, and when you get 7 or more players, that's when you use the whole deck of cards. Mm-hmm. And that is another downfall. The cards are fun to play with, but they could have been more tested, more advanced. They're not bad. There are certain cards that could be game changers. There's one in particular that allows you to look at a player's character card, which says if they're a spy or resistant, so it tells you outright.
There are some very weak cards that are added in. One that in particular comes to mind is called Opinion Maker.
Opinion Maker. Here you go.
Yeah.
It makes it so that you vote first and publicly as opposed to everyone else who votes after you. And depending on whether people trust you or not, that can change the way that they're going to vote after seeing the way that you voted. So in some ways it's a strength, but in other ways it's a weakness, and in the end I don't think it really adds very much to the game one way or the other.
With newly enhanced visual effects, THX and digital sound, and a few new surprises.
It adds a little more intrigue, but I don't think any more than just playing it without the cards.
Right. There could have been some real game-changing cards added here. A card that is given face down, for example, where it changes your alignment. So if you receive this card, you don't show it to anybody, and now if you were a Resistance, you're now a spy. If you were a spy, you're now Resistance.
What's the cover? You're playing both sides.
More thoroughly outlined mission thing would have been nice. Say you had a mission deck that you drew a card from at the beginning of every new round, and then that was what the mission was going to be. And maybe it can change the parameters a little bit, like just through random chance. This mission, though it defaults to having 3 people, now has 1 extra person you got to put on the mission, stuff like that. Maybe it could change it so it requires 2 failures for the mission to fail. Stuff like that, just to kind of give a little bit more variety, make a little game, or each game a little bit more different from the others.
If you won't play the game by my rules, then I'll play in your world.
I have pretty good deductive reasoning, but sometimes it's hard for me to keep all that jumbled in my head and kind of untangle it. Something very similar to the notepads that you get for the board game Clue. There is a lot of deduction in this game, and even though the games are short, from one round to the next you might forget who voted what, or who did what action. Just having a little scratch pad for yourself to be able to write down, well, Trevor voted this way last round, so I should keep an eye on him, or your suspicions about people, just something to keep everything straight. I mean, on one hand, that would be really helpful. I think the only thing that I would be worried about in a game is that if everybody has a scratch pad, the people who aren't writing a lot, you could basically assume are spies right off the bat. So if you were a spy, you would have to take extra care to make sure that you're writing notes down, so people can see that, so they think that you are as well Resistance.
A good spy never gets caught. A good spy never gets caught. A good spy never gets caught.
Final thoughts. Obviously, this was a big one. I enjoy finding out about new games. It's rare that anything comes out that really wows me, that feels like I should personally own it instead of just having a friend who owns it. But this is one of them. If you are a fan of these non-electronic games, this is definitely one to pick up. I couldn't possibly recommend it enough.
My final thought on it is that exactly what Trevor said. Well, actually, I think that it's important to note that there are a lot of board games. If you're not familiar with board games, you might watch our show because we review movies and we have reviewed video game. There are... I'm sure there are plenty of people that are just used to playing your staples, your Scrabble, your Monopoly, maybe at the higher tier, your Risk, but these are all commercially acceptable games for the home. You probably have them in your closet. They're probably collecting dust. If you do want to get into like a family board game night or something like that, I can recommend this game definitely because it has enough mechanics to have fun, but it's not overly complicated. Everybody's pretty much level playing field, so you really get a chance to get back into board games with this simple one. It's not a major release, and you might wow some people. If you're somebody that doesn't really play board games often, other people might be like, oh, that's pretty cool, and you might get into other board games like Illuminati or Catan or things like that. So
Please get into Illuminati. Nobody else will play with me.
yeah, please, come on.
Well, that about wraps it up for our review of The Resistance. I'm Trev.
And I'm Jake.
And thanks for watching.
Alright, well, we're done with our review, so let me give Brian a call here.
Oh, thank God that one's in the bag.
Oh, yeah. Alright.
Spirit Gameworks, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Jake, how's it going?
We're done with our review. Is it cool if we stop by and use the dimensional door?
I just closed the store down about 5 minutes ago. I'm gonna go home and do some laundry.
Ah, rats and hats. Well, can we reserve it for tomorrow?
Yeah, you can come by tomorrow. I open my doors at 2.
Awesome. Sweet. Alright, well, we'll see you tomorrow.
Alright, see you then.
Alright, so we have it reserved for tomorrow around 2.
Nice.
But now that I'm thinking about it, if we're going to the opposite dimension to find some crazy masked guy who kills people with swords, we might want to be similarly equipped.
You're right. I don't think we'll make it very far with these switchblade combs and this Dapper Dan.
Peanut butter disaster.
We four are the righteous brothers of the Resistance.